Welcome back to Secondhand Sellers. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Klayton.
We're here to talk all things thrift, resale, secondhand. And today we have a little bit of a special episode. We're going to talk about our February in review as far as eBay sales go. So we're not going to touch on any of our other platforms, but eBay sales.
eBay sales.
So we've printed off our handy reports here. All right. Do you want to start?
Sure. So we're not going to really touch on the numbers too specifically. Just as a general, I had $1,780 in sales, with 614 of that going for the selling cost, another 112 taken by eBay. So I took around $1,000 home, just over, like right around 1,060. That doesn't include my cost of goods up front, and that is for 68 items. So
68 items? All right. So we had a kind of a low month for us. Definitely last year, end of last year, we had higher sales than this. But in February, we did $785.79 in total sales. We had $257.89 in selling costs for a net sales of $474.31. And that is, of course, not including what we paid for things, which we did not go and do all the math for this video on that one. Yeah. But you can just assume we are fairly cheap. So most of the things we sold, we did not pay a ton for. And that was for 20 items, actually. So not too bad, considering that we only sold 20 items in February.
Yeah. And we're not going to go into every single number because that will get tedious if we did. But we just want to talk about generals.
What about your average sales price? That's an interesting stat here.
My average sales price is $26.29.
Okay, my average was actually higher at $39.29. And so that's kind of, you sold 67 items, I sold 20, and we came in about half of where. Little under half where you were. Yeah.
And I think that just goes into reflect what we talked about in previous episodes, where you target a specific decor, a specific niche, and I'm more of a general shotgun spray, and I might have a couple items listed for $10 that are going to sit for a little while, versus you're listing things that are more desirable, they might sit longer. So
yeah, so it is a sort of give and take, and that's not the case when we were first starting. So when we were first starting, we sold a lot of smaller things. I've talked about this before. We started with letterpress print blocks. Those were very small sales in general. Like some of them were worth more than others, but in general, we're talking under $25, most of them under $15 or around $15. So we have evolved over time, and in this past month or two, as I've talked about in some of our recent videos, I have been trying to source more items that will go for more. Yeah. And we have seen a slight drop in sales, so whether or not I stick with this strategy, we'll see going forward. January and February tend to be smaller retail sales months.
Yeah, it's January, February, people are recovering from the holiday spending, trying to get their funds back up, so they're not going out and getting a whole bunch of stuff. But what's coming, it's going to make people spend more money.
Tax returns! So get listing now.
Yeah,
so your your store is ready for tax return season.
Yeah. So, and plus, as spring is coming around the corner, more of your spring activities, your outdoor activities are going to be kicking back up. So that's going to generate more sales in those departments as well, which kind of brings us to the next section that we wanted to talk about. What were some of your highest categories?
So, just as a disclaimer on this, and I think I've mentioned it before, we mostly sell our stuff, but there are a few things that we sell for other people or that other people have taken a cut of. So for instance, my husband had some video games, some NES video games. We've been selling those for him. We get a percentage, but he gets most of the money on that. So that does affect our numbers here. And then the other one is we've sold things that my dad has has given us to sell, and so he ends up with a small cut, and we end up so that just skewed my numbers a little bit. So when I say video games and consoles was my top category in February, in your mind, remember that some of these were, most of the money went to my husband on that one. So again, Hannah and I get a percentage for the work of listing it and selling it, but
that's not your general target demographic.
No, but some of them were ours too.
Yeah.
So we went through we had tons of GameCube games and some Wii games from when we were younger, and we kept some for sure, but there were a lot that we never played. So, for instance, going into that number, we sold a Batman Rise of Sinzu Nintendo GameCube game, and that was out of our personal collection, and that one's sold for $72.62. With the total, and selling costs on that were $17.30, plus there was state taxes. But we got a really good amount for that. And that was our personal one. But then we also sold Legendary Wings for $91, with $18 in selling costs, and that was my husband's. So we took our 20% cut for the work part, and the rest went to him. So keep that in mind. But our second one was Home and Garden.
You actually didn't tell your category.
Oh, I said video games and consoles.
Like the percentage.
Oh, the percentage.
Yeah.
So, that was 32%.
Okay.
32.33% was the video games and consoles. And coming in second, and we've talked about this before, but we have a pretty wide range. Not a super wide range. Like, I think yours is probably even more fragmented than ours is.
Yeah.
But we have a few different niches that we work within. So our second, after that first one, coming down, they're a little more fragmented. But our second runner-up was Home and Garden, specifically small kitchen appliances, at 10.63%. And I contribute, that was $83.52 in sales on that one. And I contribute that to, I believe, we sold an electric tortilla press.
Oh, yeah.
We had purchased that at $10 for about $10 at Goodwill, plus tax. And I think, what did we sell that for? That went pretty good. Yeah, we sold that for $83.52. So that one item was a full 10% of our February sales. And that one had a selling cost of $27.82. So, we walked away with, 30 to 50, like that range in profit, even after accounting for what we paid for that.
Yeah.
So what were your top two?
So my top two are toys and hobbies, specifically collectible card games. That had $409 worth of sales for 22.9% of my store.
That's pretty high.
And then right after that, video games, I had $154, so 8.63 of my sales. Which, looking back at the month, I don't feel as if I sold that many trading cards. But part of that is I sell a lot of trading cards out of my own personal collection. And I'll play Magic, and then I'll take cards that I get from the event, and I list them right away because they are pre-release pricing, so they're at a little bit of a premium where some people, they want to get the cards before the set comes out. So that's one of the things I think probably boosting that number up. But overall, looking back at the month, I'm happy with what I did. I know it's got to be a little bit more the more I want to delve into this, but overall.
What was your third highest?
Third are cameras and photos with $112 at 6.3%. But I sold, I want to say like 2 cameras. 2? So, but I feel like I sold like more in just general electronics. But I only sold, like they split it up into many layered, so like it's consumer electronics, but specifically DVD and Blu-ray players.
Okay, so they split them into 2 separate.
Yeah, and so it's like I sold 1 DVD Blu-ray player, but I feel like I sold other small electronic things too. So
My third one was collectibles, which not that shocking. We've talked about the kind of things that Kill Overstock sells usually. But the funny part about that is it's canisters and jars. So it's collectibles, kitchen and home, kitchen storage and organization, and canisters and jars. And we sold a total of $64.25 in that category in February for 8.18% of our total sales. And I think that's because we sold a decorated swing top for $22.64, but we also sold a LaLance and Gross Jean Crusader Wear stainless steel canister set, which I think I've talked about on this podcast before. We sold that in February. We sold that one for $64.25. That was a 2 canister set. One actually had a little dent in it, but they're collectible. And they had a total selling cost of $16.52 plus that $3 in fees, taxes rather. And we only paid $5 for that LaLance and Gross Jean set. So we did pretty good in that category too, but it's kind of a funny category to have as your third one. Canisters and jars.
Canisters and jars.
So you can sell all kinds of things on eBay.
It's also interesting looking at it in the breakdown of how niche eBay can take an item. Like how specific they can go. It is not just kitchenware, it's specifically canister and jars.
And there's a little bit of importance there in putting things in the correct category too. And so recently there's been some things that have maybe not gotten as many views as I wanted, or like the other day I can't remember what it was exactly immediately off the top of my head, but I adjusted the category on something to see if it would do better in a different category. So if you have things that aren't moving, double check those categories and see if you can find a more niche category for it, or maybe it's like a crossover between 2 categories and you can try a different category to see if it sells.
I will add on there, so make sure if you are using another person's listing, like if you found the item that you are selling and somebody else has it listed or somebody else has sold it in the past few days and you're using that listing, make sure they have it in the correct category. I listed an item, it was actually a trading card, and when the item sold, I went to choose the standard eBay envelope for trading cards option to mail the item out, and it wouldn't let me because it said it was in the home and garden category. So I had to message the customer, tell them, hey, I messed up when I listed this. I'm going to cancel it, refund you, relist it in the proper category. You are welcome to make the purchase again. They said, by all means, sure thing.
Home and garden.
Yeah.
It was a trading card.
It was specifically home and garden, like gardening tools or something like that. I have no idea who listed that, but I just glanced over it because I just presumed the person that had listed it put it in the right category. So I had to fix it. The customer made the purchase and was able to get it shipped out at the proper rate, because otherwise it was going to cost me $4 to mail out that one card. And normally you can get it with the eBay standard envelope down to 65 cents. So
yeah, I've not done that very often, but I think we've done that once or twice.
Yeah,
for a couple of small things like that.
It's just those weird.
Yeah, watch the categories, and also that, like we said, that could affect whether or not it's selling too. Because if you have somebody looking in that category and browsing in that category and your item is not there, you're not going to sell it.
Yep.
So how many categories so we've talked a lot about on this podcast about how broadly you sell, like as far as your categorically you have very wide, you cast your net wide basically. How many categories total did you have?
So I did not click on the drop down to apparently view more.
I think that's other stuff though. Like, so how many just overarching categories did you have?
I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just displays 5, and then it says view more.
Oh, okay. Yep, me too. We both screwed up on that one.
We'll get back to you on future versions of this.
A little more in depth, but I had so the last 2 in my top 5 were home and garden, which was home and garden, and then it was all the way like opened up to lamps, because we sold 1 lamp for a decent price, and then books and magazines, antiquarian and collectible, which was still at 5.66% of my total sales at the 5th category.
So, I already mentioned the DVD player, which I only sold one, but still. And then clothing, shoes, and accessories specifically for men's.
So like t-shirts or?
No idea.
No idea.
I don't know. I know it because it's $96. 5.39% of my store. I know I sold a pair of shoes last month. I probably sold a couple pair of shirts. I don't know. And I don't have all my eBay items on here. I forgot to actually get the rest of them, but that's okay.
Here's another quick metric we can talk about. What does your buyer profile look like? Do you have a lot of repeat buyers? Are these all one-time buyers?
I had one repeat buyer, and if I remember right, yeah, I lined up that repeat buyer. So essentially, I sold an item on eBay, and I had more of items that were similar to that, and I made sure to reach out to the customer and go, "Hey, thanks for the purchase. If you want, I have other ones available." And they were like, "Awesome!" And I told them what I had available, said, "I'll get pictures for you," took some pictures, gave them to her. She ended up being like, "Yes, I want XYZ," made a new listing, said it's available, took an offer from her, and got it sold. Which that can be one of the ways that you can quickly turn a bunch of stuff, because I didn't have to make individual listings for each of those items. I bundled them up, gave her a better deal, saved me on some shipping. It just worked out that way. What about you?
So we've had repeat buyers in the past, but as far as February goes, again, we sold 20 things and we had 20 one-time buyers. So hopefully I don't know. I know there's a certain percentage of people that are following our store. So we have had followers from our past sales. Hopefully some of these one-time buyers turn into repeat buyers, but in February, all of them were new.
Yeah. And overall, I had one other metric I wanted to talk about. So, like any business, there's selling costs with eBay. We both do promoted listings. So how much of the promoted listing did it cost you to run your listings?
Oh, where do you see that?
The selling cost page. Underneath.
I wonder if I got that one. Oh, there it is. So as far as promoted listings, ad fees here?
Yeah, I think ad fees.
I only had $8.09 in ad fees, which was 3.1% of the selling cost. So pretty low.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing. I mentioned that the video games we're selling for my husband. He usually we kind of give him the autonomy to make decisions about that particular thing.
Because it cuts into his margin.
Yeah,
as well.
We usually ask him before we send offers, that kind of thing, for the most part. And so one thing he always does is wait to promote it. So most of the things in our stores, we automatically we put a 2% promotion fee. We have talked about this before. We have a whole podcast talking about promoted listings and how we like to do them. You can find that in our channel. But for he usually does not do that. And because they're NES games, because most of them had boxes, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And so he immediately gets he gets watchers on those. We get watchers on those without ever promoting them. So that helped in having that percentage be a lot lower, is because we sold a couple of his NES games in February, which were not promoted.
Yeah, you don't have to shell an extra 2% to eBay. So.
Yep. So that helped in that. And then apparently there must have been some other things, because 3.1% is really low.
Yeah.
So there must have been a few things that were just sold because people were searching for them.
Yeah.
How did you do?
I had 3.5%, which is lower than I would have thought.
Yeah, only barely higher than mine.
It's $21.59, but that reflects I did have more sales overall.
Yeah, you had a lot more sales overall. So I hope to see a higher day too.
Yeah.
Soon, but yeah. So
But
that's pretty
do-
affordable. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I do agree for targeted items, something that you know people are often watching that search and getting the notifications whenever something gets listed. Probably not worth your time to go ahead and promote it, or even wait a few days to promote it, just to see if you can put that extra 2% into your pocket. But I do what you do. As soon as I list it, 2%, just done. And I do get a lot more traffic that way.
Yeah, we sell a lot of things via promoted listings, and typically, for the relatively small fee, it's worth it to move it out.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, I don't want to sit on my stuff forever.
Yeah.
I'm about moving it through.
Yep.
So.
Move the inventory, you get more profit, so you can get more inventory, and repeat the cycle over and
then,
over.
And that's, again, the benefit of buying low for most things is you have the margins to do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're selling it for $5 more than you bought it for, you know, if you're selling a $50 item and you paid $45 for it, that promoted listing really hurts. But if you bought it for $5 and you're selling it for $50, okay, you can afford a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, was there any other metric that you wanted to talk about?
No, that was just the one I was really curious about, because I would have thought
would be higher.
Yeah, especially with how many things I sold, I was like, oh. So if you guys are curious, if you had any questions for us, please leave them down in the comments.
Yeah, we can look up some more detailed stats too, if there's a specific thing that we didn't cover that you would like to know about. And we're thinking about doing this actually monthly.
Yeah.
So if you like this idea, if you want to hear how we're doing, let us know, because we want content that's engaging. But yeah, we think we'll probably be back in early April to do a March overview too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have that transparency for you, show we're not just talking about it.
Yep. And I think actually early May might be the most fun, because early May to early June.
Yeah.
After those tax returns.
June will be really fun too, because we'll be garage sailing.
Ooh.
So, you know.
We'll hopefully have some videos about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Comments, questions, suggestions below. Please, we do respond to our comments. And thank you again for watching this week. We'll be back again next week with another episode of the Secondhand Sellers Podcast.
Yeah. See ya.
Have a great day.
What was it that you said? Stay... No, that's not right. Happy thrifting. Because I was going to do, for my videos, stay thrifty. Happy thrifting.